Well, good morning, everybody. We are official. We are starting our national Zoom property tour. My name is Scott Buckwoltz. I am one of the hosts for today's property tour. We also have Yas Hawk on today. Guys, we do these property tours every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. and where we love to feature one or a group of investors from our community, as we are a national community of investors that work together, we collaborate together, we learn together, and we support. We have a mentorship. We support. It's an awesome part about being part of this community is that we have others to reach out to. And so today we're going to be featuring Corey and Kevin. They've got a great short-term rental from Tucson, Arizona. Guys, we are going to keep everybody on mute today. That way we don't have a lot of background noise. We will have time to answer questions, so please type those in the chat room as we go along. Corey is going to be showing a PowerPoint and going through numbers later on too. So if you have early questions on numbers, kind of hang tight until we get to that. But again, welcome on, guys. We're just so glad you took an hour of your day out. And this is going to be a great property tour. So without further ado, I'd love to bring Corey and Kevin out. You guys want to jump on?
Hey, good morning, Scott.
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
We are awesome. We are awesome. Well, guys, so you were on what, a couple months ago? We had you out?
We were. Yeah, about 6 weeks ago or so.
6 weeks. Okay. And so today, guys, I like to do this when we get these started. Just take a few minutes out. A lot of people on today have never seen you guys or heard, from you guys or met you guys. I'd love to kind of introduce you as far as tell a little bit about your story, like where you were before you became an investor. Okay. Maybe why you decided to become an investor, real estate investor, and why did you get a part of our community? So let's start with Corey. If you could kind of introduce yourself and give everybody on a little bit about you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ron Behar. My husband and I have been kind of all over the place with our investments and business opportunities that we've tried. We became unintentional investors during the crash. We had properties and were unable to liquidate them due to the massive downturn, obviously, that many of us experienced. And they turned into rentals, and we didn't know what we didn't know. And we have all the horror stories to go along with that. But as we made our way from Michigan, Pennsylvania, Indiana to finally Arizona, we always found ourselves in our circle of friends surrounded with real estate investors. So when we were introduced to the community, thanks to a love note between two third graders, and yeah, it's a cute little story. But once we found the community and we started digging in to really see what was what, we'd been around the block a time or two, like I said, with other business opportunities, and we weren't able to make them work for us. And when we found the community and really dove into the offerings and the support, it made sense for us. And it was November, the end of November 2018, I remember it specifically. And our local mentor, sponsor, whatever you want to call him, literally spent 3 hours at our kitchen table with us, helping us work through all of the anxiety and questions. And we haven't looked back. We haven't looked back since. And it's been nothing but positive experience, lots of growth, and thankfully income as well.
You're on mute, Scott.
I apologize. I try to stick myself on mute while you guys are talking because I don't want to get any background noise in there. But Corey, you and your husband have how many children?
We have 4.
4 children. That is awesome. That is awesome. So 4 children. You guys were doing investing back prior to the crash and during the crash. And I think not to change what you said, but basically you didn't know what you didn't know. I think you said that.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
That is one of my favorite sayings because I understood that saying before I found this group and this community, but I didn't really understand, even though it's a simple phrase, I didn't really understand the full explanation or the full definition of what that meant. And it's so neat that you brought that up because obviously, that was a really rough time during the crash. And I'm sorry you went through what you went through, but I'm sure now that you look back at it, and now that you're part of our community and what you gained from the knowledge and working with other folks and collaborating with folks from our community, you're like me. I feel I'm very well positioned. I can't control whether I can't control if interest rates go up 2 points by the end of the year. I can't control that. But what I can control is by using the strategies that I've learned through this community, I get myself in a good position that if I need to go shift, I can. And so that was a great intro, Corey. Thank you very much. Kevin, obviously, you've got a different path to this community. I do know your story, but again, there's a lot of folks on today that have never met you.
Sure.
And it just always is good because what's so cool about these property tours, guys, is that you never know when people are going to resonate with the featured investor. And we might have somebody on right now that, Corey, it's a female that has a family, maybe they've done some flips or maybe they had a couple rental properties, but they want to grow their business to the next level. So what you share really resonates with them. So Kevin, what about you?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So first of all, thanks for having us here today. And working with Corey is just a blessing and a pleasure. And our families have become fast friends over the last few years. And thank you for inviting us here. So I'm going to go through my story briefly because as we move forward, I'm going to be moving because I've got some pressing appointments today here this morning. But here's the long and short of it. I was involved in marriage and family counseling ministry. It was family run. That closed down. So I needed to figure out what my next career was going to be. So I jumped into the insurance industry. So I sold health, life, and ancillary products, which was quite just a different divergence from where I was at with Christian Counseling Ministries. Then through my years as an insurance agent, that desire inside I got to build that real estate portfolio. It's got to happen sooner or later, the dream, the desire. I went to all the gurus. I went to dating myself here with my age, but years ago, they would go to all the hotels and make the rounds, and sell their wares. And it was never what I was looking for. So my mom and dad, Gary and Sylvia, Lawrence, some people know Dr. G and Sylvia, they got involved with this community, got involved in the education. I was watching them have great success with what they were doing. And I started thinking, well, if my old man can do it, then, come on, I'm sure I can do the same thing, right? I don't know if anyone, and I say old, they were young. He was only 65 when he started. But what I'm talking about is from like a competition standpoint, right? I can't let my dad win. I got to get out there and do this too. But I saw a path and I saw an opportunity that's completely different from anything I saw. I'm like, this is different. This is education, it's community, it's support, it's people like-minded, abundance mentality. I'm like, this is what I really think I've been looking for all those years. And I told my wife about it. Of course, we watched my parents over the years. And she said, absolutely not for us. I was like, what? So we had some really deep conversations like Corey and her husband, Ron, did. And we really noodled through this. And I just told her, I know, not I think, but I know I can make this happen. So I jumped in, got fully plugged in, been doing deals ever since, realizing profits. I don't want to get into the numbers because I don't want to entice people or make them think it's like you said, Scott, it's a different path for everyone. But here's what I can say. I'm at a place now in my life where I'm glad I didn't wait, because if I kept waiting and waiting and waiting, then years would go by and I wouldn't have what I have now with real estate.
Absolutely. And, Kevin, I really appreciate you taking time out today. I know your beautiful, fantastic wife just had a surgery. I'm glad she's going through recovery right now. So it's really cool that you were able to take a few minutes out to be a part of this. And, but I was having a great conversation with a young man who is 32 years old yesterday. He served our country in Iraq when he was 18, 19, and for 2 years. He got out of Iraq and he took his military money and he put it in some rental properties. Well, unfortunately, he really didn't know what he needed to know, and he ended up losing those, unfortunately. Now, 10 years later, he's back in the game, and we're talking because he's looking for a community. And one of the great things that he was talking about is that, he has such a good mindset. And, everything starts with mindsets. And he has such a good mindset because he's learning that using that past experience as a real learning experience. And he's glad that it happened to him at that point in life. And, but I was telling him last night, I was like, I know where I am at. I found this community when I was 55 and a half. And I was telling him, if I knew what I know today when I was 32, oh my gosh. I mean, because, Kevin and Corey, you'll agree with me. We just don't learn what we learn in this community and through our education in school. And our parents were not trained as well when they were growing up. So we just don't know about this stuff. And so Kevin, again, thanks for jumping on and sharing. We're going to flip over to Corey. And I know you guys are going to talk about your short-term rental. You've had this thing up and going for a while now. And so we can't wait. There's a lot of people want to see pictures of it, and then talk about the number, and also talk about why rentals. That is a strategy that everybody's so excited about right now. You have a lot of people jumping into it. Obviously, every state, every city, every county has different regulations, so you've got to be very careful. You got to fully understand those. But Corey, why don't you take it over from here now?
Yeah, absolutely. So just one quick little thing, Scott, you're right. We didn't know and learn, in school what we learned through the community. It's amazing. I have an engineering degree, a business degree. I was working on my MBA, and I can tell you in my first 6 months, I learned more through the community than I did through all that education. So yeah, it's crazy. It's literally changed our life. And I'm very thankful for that. So the property, so you see this little yellow house off to the side? That little house over there off to the side is where we rented when we moved to Tucson last May. And the couple that owned this property that you see here highlighted, actually it was a military couple, a young couple, and they were getting ready to relocate. So, as neighbors do, we, hey, I'm Corey, my husband Ron, my family, and they introduced themselves and we got to chatting. And when they needed to move because of relocation to their next duty station, they came to me first, and I had first opportunity to buy this property below market. The market value on this property was $365. That was what they were going to list for. We picked this property up for $308. It actually appraised at $340 something, but because it was so much over, we were unable to get all of that. But we were able to finally adjust the price to $326. We got seller concessions back down to the $308, and that helped us bring less money to the table. And, I wouldn't have known to do that had I not had the tools and support and education provided by the community or available through the community. So this is a 3-2.
So you mentioned they were wanting 365, or it was the market value at 365?
It was.
So
yeah.
So obviously you didn't just throw a number of 308 out, right? You didn't say, let's look at, and that sounds like a good number to just throw out. What were you able to provide to the seller that justified?
So they, even though they were going to list at 365, they were going to be very aggressive with their realtor. We ran the numbers and we sat down at their table at their house. It wasn't at my house, it was at their house. And we ran through the numbers. What's it going to cost you for closing costs? What's it going to cost you for realtor's fees? And we really worked those numbers backwards and came to a number that we could agree on. I wanted 300, they wanted 315. We met in the middle.
Very good.
So this is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 3-car garage, 2,200 square foot property. It's on a hair over 1/4 of an acre, and it's a corner lot in the community. The couple actually completely flipped this house while they were living in it, and they did an amazing job with it. You'll see as we go through the pictures here. This house was built in 2007, so right at the height of the market before the crash. And you can see the living room, the clock that Kevin built. we struggled with that clock.
Yeah, that was interesting. Let me jump in here real quick and just add, if I can, Corey. So how Corey and I got connected is because Corey was in some other projects, and some of her private lenders that she built relationships with, which is a key skill that we learn in the community. What they were kind of like full, like she's exercising that money and using it and putting it to work. So she calls me and goes, "Hey, do you have access to funds? You want to get involved in a deal with me?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do. Let me see what we can do." So I went to my list of lenders and the relationships I built, and put this deal in front of one of them, and they brought to the table the private funding to get into this particular deal. And of course, it's secured and backed by real estate. The reason I bring this up, Scott, is one of the key skills I've learned because of the community and our education is how to raise private funds. Now, it sounds simple just in a phrase, but this is a life skill that has changed my entire thinking. I can literally take a good deal, walk and go to most people who have resources and show them and say, "Look, you can earn some money with this deal with me, and I can get money like poof out of thin air. I got money." And there was a thinking in my life. I thought money was so hard to get, and there's never any money, and it's only traditional financing. And how do these people do this stuff in this real estate game? And I learned how to do it. And so for me, that was an important skill that I'm.
Well, Kevin, I'm so glad you shared, because I've been a part of this community now for a little over 6 years. And when I first found this group, this community, my mindset, I was right there. I didn't have a really bad mindset, but I still had a little bit of scarcity in my life. And then when I was able to really make that paradigm or make that shift, my mindset came, I was so coachable. You know what I mean? So coachable. And because I didn't know how to have a conversation with someone and talk about the value of the property and how they could make money and why it would be good for them to be a part of my partner or my deal, and how we could build a relationship up. But through the community, I'm the same thing with you, Kevin. My eyes and everything just opened up to like, the money is out there. I mean, the other day, I don't know if this sounds right to you guys, Kevin and Corey. I heard the latest number. There's like $30 trillion in retirement funds and self-directed and all that.
Yes, that's correct.
That's a lot of money. I don't even know how you can, when you think of 30 trillion, how much really is that? And the fact that it's there, you just got to learn how to have those conversations. So thank you for jumping on, Kevin, as you're driving there and talk about that, because a lot of people who want to get started, or maybe who have started in the business, but they're struggling with that. They've heard OP, other people's money, but it's almost not like a reality to them. They're like, I don't know how you do it, how you guys do it, but I learned how to do it through this community. I learned out how to have a conversation, how to build a relationship, and to be able to do that. So thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. So Corey, when you first you and Kevin put this under contract, were you originally going to make it a short-term rental?
We were originally going to make it a rental, and Kevin and I tossed the numbers back and forth, and we looked at the market, we looked at the short-term rentals on how we could maximize value on this property. And the one key item I want to stress is when we put this under contract, we ran these numbers as if it was a traditional rental. So we know that if the market turns again, like it did, with COVID, where everything came to a screeching halt, we're still going to make money on this property, because the straight rental value will cover all of our expenses plus some. on the property. So the short-term rental just amplifies our income opportunity.
Did the vendors ship on time? Did they deliver the right amount, a number of items that were purchased? Were there any quality issues?
That help me with that. Thank you very much. So Corey, obviously you used your skill set that you learned and how to analyze a market and determine that the numbers were much better as far as the short-term rental. And again, you did some real estate back in 07, 08. Did you understand how to do that type of thing back then?
Absolutely not, which is why we lost a ton of money back then. And, if we knew then what we knew now, it would have been a completely different ballgame.
Absolutely. So run us through this a little bit. It's three. Did you say a 3-bedroom, 2-bath?
It's a 3-bed, 2-bath. Yep. I'm gonna run through the pictures real quick so you guys can get an idea. And we purchased the living room furniture with the house. We purchased the exterior, the fireplace, outdoor furniture with the house as well, and the master bedroom suite that you see. We purchased those. Everything else, Kevin and I spent many hours on Amazon shopping, and many more hours putting everything together when it arrived. But this is the master bedroom that you see here, the master shower. Like I said, the kids completely flipped this property. It was builder standard, when they got it, and it was very colorful. If you were to pull this property up on Zillow or Redfin, you would see that it is very colorful. And they put new carpet in. Master shower, you can see the bedrooms, the 3-car garage, which has an epoxied floor. I mean, they spared no expense. They really made this theirs. And that benefits us because it's a higher end property because of the finishes that they chose, especially for this particular area.
It's absolutely beautiful.
And it was just very well maintained. They did a great job.
You and Kevin did all this?
We put all the 2 bedrooms of furniture together, the entryway. Yeah, we stocked everything. We built everything. My husband helped us get all the electronics installed. So we have the smart TVs and the Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi locks and all that. My husband went over one evening after work and helped Kevin get all of that set up. So it was really a family affair.
Yeah, that's awesome. Had you done something like this before?
My husband and I had a duplex in Mesa we purchased at the end of 2019. Great time to purchase a short-term rental, right? And we had it rented. It was making amazing money, set to make some amazing cash flow. And then COVID hit. There was no spring training. So we switched everything over to long-term rental and still cash flowed through. Again, I learned that through the community. We had no idea how to do that before. We had absolutely no clue, none. And we were very fortunate that at the end of 2020, when the market took off again, we sold our entire rental portfolio and started looking at short-term rentals and started looking at flips.
Very good.
Well, it's absolutely gorgeous. You hear numbers anywhere from like $11 a square foot to $25 a square foot to actually stage it out. I mean, you've got to do everything. All the way from the right number of spoons to the right number of sheets and washcloths, and I mean, it's so detailed. Where did you find your guys' number falling was it somewhere between the 11 and 25 a square foot?
That's a good question.
That is. That's
think,
a really
Corey?
good question. Let me do some math real quick here.
Scott, as you were asking that question, my mind drifted to the detail that Corey and I spent. We were probably a good 4 hours on Amazon online buying because we had a list for the short-term rental. Oops.
Absolutely.
Lost my phone. So what's interesting is that I'd never done a short-term rental. I've been flipping houses. That's kind of been my strategy, is flipping and a little bit of wholesaling. So this was a new experience. And in a big way, I kind of followed Corey's lead because her and Ron had already had experience, which is, this is what's great about this community. This is not a competitive environment as investor communities go. You know, we're cooperative. How do we work together? Let me learn from you. And it's not, well, you can't participate until you learn everything and do everything I tell you. That's not the case, right? We have instructors we learn from. And so, you know, as people who are active, we work together. And so I just kind of really followed Corey's lead on this, but we spent a ton of time putting this together. I had the privilege of going down to Tucson, which is south of Phoenix, for 3 days, and stayed with Ron and Corey. And then, you know, like Corey said, we worked on it, Ron, and put it all together. It's a great experience.
Yeah. So I just did my quick renegade math, as you'll see here. Our setup expenses were just a hair under $10,000. So we actually spent $4.15 per square foot.
That is amazing.
Yes. Yes. Woohoo.
Yeah.
What? Hey, if you guys would love to jump on a plane, I'll buy your tickets and you can come out and help me set mine up. How's that?
I'm there.
We'll feed you well. We'll room and board you. And that's amazing. Now, did you acquire everything, or was there some stuff that was kind of donated from your own personal belongings, or was everything pretty much acquired?
No, we acquired everything.
That is amazing, guys. I'm just like shocked.
Yeah, we negotiated the purchase.
Corey, you had, I think you had one. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kev.
I was just going to say, I think you pulled one piece of furniture out of that storage unit.
We did.
And that's it.
That's it. That's all we took. Yep.
Yeah, everything else we acquired. Yeah.
Well, let's not forget the famous clock.
Yeah.
So, you know,
that was something else.
You know, one of the great classes and mentors we have is we actually have 3 days on short-term rentals, and it's amazing. I was able to fly in and attend the live class when they were recording it, and you know, how much did you guys engage in that class with doing this, either before or during it? Can you share that?
I attend all the workshops that I absolutely can. I like to hear not just the classes, but I like to be able to hear the workshops for the instructors live, because the questions that come up during the workshops kind of take a different path, and you get additional little nuggets of information that you might not have gotten because they're tailoring it specifically to that audience as questions occur. But we have definitely spent a good amount of time in the classes before, during, and after, because it's not something, you know, where you get, okay, this is what you need to do. Okay, go do it.
Yeah,
there's a lot more behind.
Yeah, we sat through all the classes for the short-term rental path, and I tell you, it's eye-opening, and it gave me a good base foundation. So when I'm working with Corey, even though her and Ron had done a couple short-term rentals, I had the class information behind me, so I felt mentally I was up to speed and I understood the language and what we were doing in the direction. So invaluable.
That's awesome. One of the questions we had, we kind of answered it earlier, Corey, but just, you know, you guys had to take a look at the regulations and things in your market before you went into the short term there in Tucson, right?
Absolutely. You need to know those. If you don't know what the regulations are, you don't know if your HOA will allow short-term rental, it can shut you down in a heartbeat. And if you bought the property at the wrong price, you are losing your tushy. You know, you're in a bad place if your HOA shuts you down and you haven't prepared for a longer term rental when you purchase the property. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. You need to know what other short-term rentals are around you. Is the market saturated? Is it a good location for a short-term rental? there's a lot of things that you really need to consider. And again, those are things that we learned through the class and through the workshops.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you talked about, again, you kind of referred back to acquisition. There's something that I was not aware of. I truly wasn't aware of this in this meeting. And that is, you make your money in a real estate transaction at acquisition. And when you tell
Absolutely.
people, they don't realize, or they don't really fully grasp, because they're thinking, well, I make the money when I stick it in the bank. What are you talking about? And as a real estate investor, because you just revert to that, is if you don't acquire a property, whether you're using it for a short-term, long-term rental, a flip, if you're using it for corporate housing, whatever you might be doing with this property, it's what we call exit strategy.
Bring the broth.
And if you don't understand that, and I always try to have 2 to 3 exit strategies on everything I acquire. Okay. And if you don't understand those and you don't buy the property at the right price, that could be a huge problem. Would you not agree, Corey?
Absolutely. If you buy the property at the wrong price, the market changes, the HOA changes its terms and conditions, with minimum allowable stays, the market becomes saturated in your area for whatever strategy you're working on. It can literally sink you financially 100%.
Yeah, that's really good. Let's see if we got any. We'll pause for just a second. Guys, if you want some questions answered, if you got something on the top of your mind, type them in the chat room. We're just getting a ton of compliments on how beautiful it is. I love the layout. I love the flow of it. I love how you laid out the furniture. To me, that's really important because you want people, when they come to stay at your house, your short-term rental, one, you want them to feel like they're at home, right? That's number one. And two, you want it to be such a great experience that obviously it's so important in short-term rentals. And Corey, you can refer and talk about this, about the reviews. And it's so important to get those 5-star reviews. And but I love the flow. I love some of the details. I'm on my phone because I'm out at a property that I just am putting under contract. And I've been meeting contractors this morning, and then I've got some after this. And we're looking at the same thing here, Corey. We're looking at flip. We're looking at we got 3 strategies: flip, long-term, or short-term. And they're all there. We can do all 3 of them. It's just when we go, and because this business is all about the numbers, as we analyze these numbers deeper and deeper, will allow us to decide, are we going to renovate this for a flip? Are we going to renovate it for a long-term rental? Or are we going to renovate it and make it a short-term rental? And so these are all great things you guys are talking about. These are golden nuggets that you're throwing out that are so important. Can you talk about the funding on this deal? Don't get into any details. We don't mention lenders' names or percentages or anything on these cars, but how much of this deal did you guys fund yourself, and how much did you use other people's money?
Okay, so I have everything ready for you. I knew you were going to ask, so I'm prepared. So our purchase price ended up being $314,250. After the appraisal came in and we were able to adjust things. And we have a conventional loan for $267,113. We have private money from Kevin's private money lender of $65,000. So that's where all of our funding came from. And this conventional loan is a 30-year at 3.125.
Very nice. So you guys have, this is maybe a little deeper question, and something we've really never talked too much about. We've been doing these property tours for over 2 years now, but so you guys have a partnership, and I would imagine it's you and your husband and Kevin and Lori are in the partnership.
Well, our business is correct.
Right, your business. I'm sorry, but your husband are the owners of your partnership, of your business. So you guys have 2 entities, your entity and Kevin's entity, that are partners in the partnership or the entity that you create. Did you create a separate entity for your short-term rental? We
did not. We purchased this with both names, both LLCs on title, and we have a partnership agreement in the background.
Yeah, so, JV agreement. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, very good. JV agreement, right? So do you guys foresee if you continue to add more to your partnership, would you create an LLC to put those all under?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And the importance of that, just briefly for
The
everybody on.
importance of that is just asset protection. I mean, if you have it in a separate LLC, now it has 2 layers of insulation between us personally and the property. So if something would go sideways, God forbid, somebody gets injured on the property, it's a lot harder for them to get back to us personally and try and hold us responsible personally for something that's in our business. So it's really asset protection.
Well, thank you for covering that. And again, that's something I learned in our classes in our community. And also the fact that some of the tax advantages you gain as well is what you've got to look at. And so that is fantastic. So you use private money. Did you say that's private or hard money on the additional money you raised?
It's private money.
It's private money. Fantastic. And so I'm just putting 2 and 2 together. So it sounds like to me you have very little money, if any, out of your own pockets.
Some setup costs. That's about it.
Some setup
The
costs.
setup. hmm
Okay.
Yeah, we
Very
have about 10,000 in setup costs out of our.
Between the two of you.
Mhm.
That's awesome. That is fantastic. So I know a lot of people are probably as excited as me because I remember when you were on 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I just can't wait for you to share the numbers that you're getting and your bookings and some of that. Do you want to cover a little bit about that?
Absolutely.
But Corey, before you jump in, I'm going to say, guys, I've got to jump off. I have a very important appointment. And again, I apologize, but thank you for your flexibility and letting me be here. Thank you for inviting me. And so I just want to jump off before you get to the good stuff. I didn't want to interrupt that. So,
No problem.
But
We're
Kevin, grateful to be
we're-
part of the community, and thanks for letting us be here.
Well, we're very blessed as well that you actually took the time out. I mentioned Lori just had a surgery and she's home recovering, and give my best to her as well when you're home with her today. And then I hope to see you in a few weeks.
Yes, Nationals, my friend.
Yes,
I'll see
we'll
you
be
there,
there.
Scott. Yeah, ready for a big old hug. How's that?
That's good. I am going to be, I mean, I know this is not part of the property tour, but over a 3-day period, I will give more hugs out than I have my whole life in 3 days.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm not,
That is true.
because for folks that are on today, that may be not a part of our community, we haven't been able to get together as a national community in 3 years, Kevin?
Yeah, it'll be 3 years since we last had our national event.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
this is so
It'll
exciting
be
for
a
it.
good time.
Yes, it will. So, well, Kevin, take care. Corey,
Thanks a lot, guys.
here. All right.
Bye-bye.
Go ahead.
Awesome. Yeah. Oop, I'm flying by here. So here's our purchase information, which we just covered. Again, we have about $10,000 out of pocket for setup costs, all total with, utility setup as well as, the physical setup portion. And you can see where our physical purchases came from as far as, the TVs, the living room furniture, the bedroom furniture, and that includes TV purchases as well. So we have a TV in every bedroom and we have a TV in the living room. So feel free to stop and ask questions wherever you're at. So this is what our booking calendar looks like since we went live in November, which is really awesome. And one key fact you guys need to realize is most property managers, we do have a property manager on this property, and they take care of all of our cleaning, all of our booking management, all of our guest communications, and many property managers who take care of the short-term rentals charge anywhere between 20 and 30%. We negotiated our price with them down to 12%. So everything's negotiable, guys. Everything's negotiable, and you learn that through the community, through the education, through the many workshops that occur over the course of the year. You learn that Everything's negotiable. Absolutely everything.
That's awesome. So how long have you had them in place?
From day one.
Oh, so you've had them in place now long enough. You've got a real good feel for them, and this is a good relationship.
Absolutely. And we negotiated that if our property does not earn enough to cover our expenses, more than cover our expenses, they get absolutely nothing that month. We get all of our fees reimbursed. And we put that to the test in November because, we only had half a month and it was not enough to cover our expenses once they took their part out. And they gave us it back. They give us their portion back.
So tell us a little bit. We're looking at December 2021. Because I'm a little familiar with this chart that you're showing right now, this calendar. So is this showing me that it looks like you're about 85% were occupied?
Yes, through December, we were sitting at about 87.5% occupied.
That's amazing. And when you ran your initial projections, I'm sure you didn't base it off of 87%. What did you? Because one of the things we learn is that when we talk about expenses, we over adjust for potential expenses. And when we talk about potential profits, we underestimate those at the same time. So what was your initial, what did you base your original numbers off of, like where your occupancy rate would be?
50%.
That is such a good conservative number. I mean, that is amazing because you already did all your due diligence. You knew you were in a good market for a short-term rental. You knew what your competition was. You knew what they were running their rates at. It's easy to look at where their occupancy is, how they're filling up. I mean, there's so many key things that we learned through our education and through our community. And so you had all that information right at the end of your fingertips. And you still went with 50%.
Absolutely, because the market's unpredictable. You just don't know. And it's so much better to be conservative and know you're going to make your numbers than to be aggressive and not make your numbers and fall short.
I'm so glad you said that. I am so glad you shared that with everybody. So you based your numbers off of 50%, and at 50%, you guys were still going to cash flow.
Correct.
That is amazing. Now that was December you showed us. Are you going to show us any?
This is January, February, and I apologize. I did not update the January screenshot, but our January was full. So the dates that you see, let me pop over to my.
So we're seeing calendar looks pretty full. It looks like you only had a couple days that you didn't have bookings.
Oh no, we actually had all but one day in January. That's what I'm saying. Like our calendar was completely different. I forgot to update it, so I apologize.
So you had like 95% or higher.
98 in January.
Well, I know everybody that's on today, whether you have done short-term rentals, whether you've stayed in a short-term rental like Airbnb or VRBO or some of those, there's probably over 100 platforms out there. But if you know just enough to know about this business, I would think everybody's eyes just got really big when they heard 98% occupancy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And we didn't anticipate that in the least little bit. It makes me very nervous to look at the calendar and see, empty spaces. But I've learned that it's okay. I can take a breath and I know that we're going to meet our expenses based on what we see. And then in March, you can see that we currently only have 3 days vacant.
That is awesome. So we did have another question pop in. We did talk about this. Kevin talked about it. Corey did a little bit ago. Well, actually in the beginning, someone wanted to know, how did you find your private lender? How did you have that conversation? Basically, again, being a part of this community, building relationships, it's so key. And, I talked about my mindset, Corey, when I first found this community. I was brought up the old school way. I was brought up, go get good grades, get a great job, start a family, buy a home, work until you're retired at 65 or 62 or whatever it was, and that life would be great. And that time and money seemed to be my most important currencies.
Yep, absolutely. Us as well.
Yeah, I totally shifted and realized how knowledge and relationships were the vital currencies. And that with those two in place, the money and the time flexibility to do the things we want to do in life, family and trips and all that would come available. And they have, they absolutely have. And so again, you know, it's a great question. That seems to be at the top of the mind of most people that I meet in my daily walk of life. They say, oh yeah, I want to be an investor, but if I just had more money, I could do a lot more deals. And
Absolutely.
and I'm just honest and frank with them. And I say, hey, you know, I kind of thought the same thing when I first found this community, but today I'm able to get properties under contract before I even have the funding lined out. And because I'm continuing to build my relationships, I take care of private partners, just like you guys do, Corey and Kevin. I know Kevin had to jump off, and we keep building relationships together. So that, I love that. I love that. So here's some numbers. We don't want to run out of time here. Let's go through here. So there's your income. You want to go through this?
Absolutely. So our income from when we went live on November 17th through the end of March, we're sitting at $23,037. Property management at 12% comes out to $2743.80. Cleaning fees, we have a $150 cleaning fee for every turnover at $1,800. So we had one gentleman who booked the majority of the month of March. So we had minimal turnovers. And he booked it at our intro rates. So he was very, very lucky and got a very inexpensive rate before we increased. Because when we first went live, one of the strategies is that you drop your rate lower than everybody else so that you start to get those bookings. And then as you achieve, you know, a higher booking stat level, right? So your first 5 bookings, let's say, are at a lower rate, and then your rates go up, and then you're to 10. And then once 10 hits, then you raise them again so that you are able to start establishing that booking history, as well as achieve that superhost status, which we did in our first 5 bookings. So we were very, very fortunate that way as well, which also gives us a boost in the rankings because we're superhost. We have 5-star ratings across the board. And then, pardon? Sorry, Scott.
I said that was amazing. I'm looking at these numbers and I see some comments in here. It's like, wow. People love that bottom line that you got there.
Yeah, a 4-month average of, you know, basically, you know, almost $2,200 a month average. It's pretty significant. And
this
that's after expenses.
One deal.
Correct. Yep.
Fantastic. And you've really got everything in here. You got your utilities, your insurance, you've got all your expenses involved to get a really good, and of course you already know where March sits for the rest of the month. And so you got some really very accurate numbers here.
We do. And I can tell you that all of these bookings, with the exception of one, have come from Airbnb. We just went on VRBO the beginning of March to help fill in a couple of holes, and we only have one booking from VRBO. I'm not saying it's a bad platform. It's definitely, I just want to make people aware that this is where it's coming from for this particular property. And VRBO is a little different. It's also a very, very good platform, but our property manager uses it to supplement Airbnb versus the other way around. Some managers prefer VRBO over Airbnb platform, and it's really just personal preference. I don't care as long as my bottom line works out.
Absolutely. Another great question. So where you're located, you're in Tucson. It's very much a tourist state. Tucson has a ton of tourism there. I've been there. It's a beautiful, I said state, Arizona's a state, but Tucson is that market is gorgeous. I've been there for spring training before. I'm a huge baseball fan. And so I've been there. I've been to several spring training camps all over the country. It's one of my passions. But so like this question came in, it's a great question. So say you live in a market that's not really tourist driven. And I know, Corey, you can talk to this because of our education and the knowledge. How do you make a short-term rental? Let's say everything's fine, the codes, the regulations, you're allowed to have a short-term rental. But say you're in a market that's not really tourist driven. How would you gear your either your acquisition, or there's another strategy in short-term rentals, which we don't have time to talk today about, but it's called the arbitrage model. How would you look at a market, and let's say there is a market out there that I like to get into, but it's not driven by tourism. What are the other factors that you're looking for when you come to location?
Absolutely. You're going to look for key things, right? It may not be a huge tourist area, but maybe there's a university nearby. University students always need housing for their parents, for parents' weekends, for sports activities, especially if it's a larger school. Lots of other opportunities. Traveling business professionals. Maybe it's not a nightly rental like Airbnb, like what we call Airbnb, but a nightly rental. Maybe it's a little bit longer rental. Maybe it's a mid-term rental, meaning 30 days to 6 months. It really depends. The traveling professionals like nurses, doctors, educators, even artists and musicians, etc., they need rentals for the time that they're in the area. And it's an excellent strategy to look at that as well. So short-term rental does not necessarily mean Airbnb or VRBO. There's a lot of other opportunities as well. But when we're looking at market strategies, we're looking at, okay, what is the travel time? This particular property, for instance, is not right next to the University of Arizona. It's not that close. It's about 15 minutes away. So it's far enough away that the parents feel very comfortable in the setting, right? It's like them being at home versus that party setting around the university where the younger crowd is going to gather and, be out having fun and bar hopping or whatever it is they're doing. This is a place that I would stay if my kids were going to U of A.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Also looking at builders, right? We have a huge market down here for new construction as many areas across the country, and people are selling their houses because it's a seller's market right now to move into another property, but they can't identify another property right now because the market's so lean and they need a place to stay. So the other opportunity that we have with this property and properties that are not necessarily in a high tourist area is to fill that niche in the market where people need a shorter term lease that they can get out of, month to month or week to week until they identify a new property or their new house is built.
So well said. So well said. Something I forgot to mention a little while ago, and I need to get this in before we wrap up today. Guys, if you're on today and you're either just getting started with our community or you're a guest today, maybe this is the first property tour you've been on, maybe you haven't been to any of the workshops that Corey's talked about, things like that, and you want to learn more about our community, you want to learn more about a lot of what Corey and Kevin have talked about, but you want a little expansion on it, right after this property tour, in about 10 minutes, guys, we're going to have, it's at a different link, a different Zoom link. So get back to who invited you. And if you're just new to our community and you want to get on it as well, you know how to find it on the calendar. And it's going to be with Umair Hawk. And it's more of like an introduction to our community, like who we are, what we do, how we collaborate, how we use education and knowledge and relationships to build our businesses. Get back to invited you, and you can jump on that in a few minutes. It is on a different link. Corey, we're kind of wrapping up at the end of the hour. You've done an amazing job. And I can't wait to see you here in a few weeks. And I might be picking your brain a little bit. Who knows?
Please do. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? We're here to help each other grow. And it's not just all about us. It's not a self-centered I universe with us. It is definitely, how can I help you today? What can we do together to grow?
Absolutely. Very much a payback type of attitude and mindset and pay forward, that is. And so we're going to wrap up here. You got a couple minutes. What would you like to leave everybody with? If you've got people trying to decide, do I get into real estate investing? How do I start? Should I think about short-term rentals? But just overall more like, how do I get started, or where do I start? What could you leave some people with, just a couple bits of advice?
honestly, my best advice is investigate, see who we are. Take advantage of workshops like this and workshops with our instructors to learn who we are. Get to events and really get a feel for the community so that you know that we really are who we say we are and we really do what we say we do. And, if real estate investing has the potential to set you free financially. It's a journey, people. It's not a sprint. It is definitely a marathon, and you need to keep that in mind as well. The people out there flashing those massive checks that they're getting right now are probably not going to be around for too terribly long flashing those big old checks, because they're in the sprint, not the marathon. The long-term financial gain and security really comes from that marathon strategy.
Yeah. So you mentioned you have, did you say 4 children?
We do. Yeah.
So you have 4 children. Kevin and Lori have 3?
3, correct.
I thought. And so between the 2 of you guys, you got 7 children. I'm sure a lot of your why in your life is about your children, about setting a legacy, setting that generational wealth up. And I think for most of us that have families, that's what we do. And I'm sure you guys have a great plan for that.
We do. And again, those resources came from within the community on setting that plan, setting that strategy, and really having those tough conversations with us of what our goals were, and helping us really make sure that we're meeting those goals in a timely manner.
Well, that's fantastic, guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap up for the day. Corey, thank you so much for being on, taking an hour out of your day. And actually, it's more than an hour because you had to prepare for it and all that. We really appreciate it. And you guys have been so awesome. And I just love being on tours with you guys. I love featuring you guys because you guys are the real deal. You're so kind, but you're so giving. You help others out. And, again, so glad you were on. Next Saturday, we are going to be over, I believe, either in the Maryland or the DC market. We'll be coming live from there. That's going to be next Saturday. And then the Saturday off, the one after that, that Saturday, we're all going to take a break on that Saturday. That's because most of us are going to be at the national conference, learning still, because my mindset is I'm always learning, and I'm going to continue to learn, and I want to learn. I just have a zeal, and I'm driven by learning, and I want to become better, and I want to help others out. So I can't wait to get to the national conference. So we'll be taking that Saturday off. So next one, we'd love to have you guys back. We'll see you then. Corey, have a great weekend. Tell your husband hello, and we'll see you guys soon. Okay.
Absolutely. We'll see you in Utah.
Take care, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.